Hi, I'm Josh Cadillac, and welcome to my podcast, Know Your Shit. I've been blessed to see great success, as well as seeing the bottom up close and personal in 2008. And if there's one lesson I've learned, is that if you want to have success and differentiate yourself from everyone else out there, you need to know your shit. As a successful real estate and crypto investor and an educator, it drives me insane that people do not immerse themselves in their craft. Everyone is so busy advertising and testing new sales techniques, they forget the most important thing, the product. Here I want to talk to the folks that got this right, the most successful people in the world in every industry. Bring them to you and find out what they learned in their business that made it great. When you listen to my podcast, you will know for sure that the topics and experts we have on have one thing in common. They know their shit. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride in what we do drives us to be excellent. My name is Josh Cadillac, and I'll be in the driver's seat for today's show as we bring you another amazing guest here to talk about what it takes to actually close for life, what it takes to build a business that you're proud of, to do something that's great and meaningful in this world. So without further ado, I want to introduce our amazing guest, Mr. Baldwin. Dre, thanks so much for being on here today, buddy.
Josh, I'm excited to be here, and I like that you curse on this show, so I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Most excited about is that there will be profanity going on.
Yes, sir.
I like to call it like I see it, and sometimes you got to say it. Sometimes
That's right. That's right.
Dre, why don't you tell everybody what it is that you do?
Sure. So my background is in sports. Played walked on in college, barely played in high school, walked on D3 college. Hustled my way into playing pro ball. And from playing pro ball, I started putting content on the internet, basketball material. Those players started asking me questions about mindset. And I'm speeding through this here, but players started asking me questions about mindset. I started talking about things like discipline and confidence and mental toughness and taking initiative. And through that, the players said, man, the stuff you're talking about, Dre, you sound like a philosopher or a college professor. And then people who didn't play ball started hearing me when I was talking about the mindset stuff outside of basketball. And they said, hey, I know you're talking to the athletes when you say that, but the stuff you're saying, Dre, that applies to everybody. So what happened, Josh, is I started to build an audience of people who were not athletes based on just the mindset stuff that I was saying for athletes. So that planted a seed in my head while I was still playing basketball, that I had an audience, a potential audience outside of athletes. And I knew that I wanted to expand my reach beyond sports after sports. So I started doing that while I was still playing. So about the last half of my pro career, which was 9 years, the last 4 or 5 years, I was talking to audiences of everybody, even though I was still playing basketball. And then in 2015, to give everybody a time frame here, when I stopped playing ball, I went full time into just talking to mostly entrepreneurs. I mean, a lot of the athletes, and they grew out of basketball and they're business guys now. Many of them are my clients, but that's how we got here.
Well, I mean, I think that what you talk about, that consistency, what an athlete is somebody that's trying to get the best out of themselves. They're pushing themselves to get the best out of themselves. And when you're striving for that edge, there's such a narrow margin between let me sit down and eat a bag of chips or let me do that one more lap. Let me do that one more rep, right? There's always that voice in your head that you're competing with that says you've done enough. And there's always kind of this thing that we're looking for, it seems like, and tell me if I'm wrong, Dre, we're looking for that little thing to help us make the decision, the harder decision to maybe keep going. And that constant negotiation with ourselves. Is that something that you agree with, or what do you think?
No, yeah, that's a huge thing. I think everybody does that. The salesperson who's thinking, should I make that last call before I leave for the weekend? The athlete who's thinking about getting that last rep in. Absolutely. That's one of the big frameworks that we talk about here is called the third day. Is all about that. How do you keep showing up even when you don't feel like it?
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to feel like it. It's going to happen. There's going to be days where you get your ass kicked every single step of every single minute of that day. And the questions, and this is one of the things that one of my go-to lines where I kind of maybe cross-pollinate with some of the things that you talk about, is asking that ultimate CEO question, which the ultimate primary CEO question that there has to be is, what the hell are you going to do about it? Because at the end of the day, the one thing you're not allowed to say as a CEO is, it's not my fault, right? As a CEO, you have to take responsibility. So, okay, this happened.
what the hell are you going to do about it? And I love to take and work that in early and on in my teachings, because I say whenever there's a quandary, all right, guys, what do we do now? Refer to question 1. What are you going to do about it when this happens to you? You have to be prepared. If you're not prepared for something that you know is coming, well, unfortunately, it's a shame on you moment. And to me, as I think about it, the idea that I'm going to be down at some point, there's going to be times where life has kicked my ass. If I'm not ready for that in advance with a plan in place, that's a failure of leadership and planning on my part as a CEO of my life, right? And so I don't know if that, John, what you teach, man, but that's kind of where I come from. I'm curious to hear what you think about that.
I 100% concur. And it's an interesting thing when it comes to what are you going to do when that thing happens, is knowing that something's going to come, knowing as a CEO, knowing as a CEO just of your own life. So even people listening to this who aren't CEOs, maybe you don't own a business, maybe you have a job, maybe you're just trying to figure your life out right now, maybe you're a student. You're the CEO of your own life, and something's going to come, and it's being mentally prepared, even though you may not know what the thing is, being mentally prepared for the fact that something's going to come, and knowing that you're going to have to deal with it, and that you have the internal fortitude to know that whatever it is, you will be able to deal with it. That's really how I define mental toughness. And what I tell people
standing
is,
on the other side. Yeah,
exactly. And what I tell people is not the hard punch that knocks you out, is the one that you don't see coming, right?
Yeah.
It's just the fact that you know that something's coming, and you know that you'll be able to deal with whatever happens. That's what mental toughness is actually about. Not that you don't feel down, or that you don't have bad days, or you don't ever get frustrated. It's just that you'll be able to keep going no matter what.
Yeah. And I think that there's this piece of this of us proving ourselves to ourselves all the time, from the standpoint of like the things that we've endured. Like if I said to you, hey, we got to do a 5-mile run. Well, I'm sure in your athletic career, you've done plenty of 5-mile runs. It may hurt, it may suck, but you can do 5 if you had to. Like if a gun with, like, I know I could do 5 miles if I had to, right? But there's people that have never done 5 miles. And for them, they live with that uncertainty and that fear. They don't know that they're still going to be standing. And that confidence that comes from the things that you've endured is such a beautiful, powerful thing. But what do we try to do for people? We try to cut off that process of them having to endure through the hard thing. And we try to make it easier. We try to make it softer. And there's a place for just surviving the hard thing to say, hey, look, fingers and toes, I'm still here. I made it through that. Because next time when it gets hard, a little bit more what's in the tank. You know how deep you can go, right? And so this is, I think so much about this stuff now, because I kind of getting thrust more and more. These are kind of the direction the questions have been taking me more and more, is this idea of like, everybody wants to be on the mountaintop, but where do you grow? You grow going through the valley. So if there's a better version of me inside of me that I haven't seen yet, and that version of me is on the other side of that valley, that means I can enjoy the mountaintop, but I got to get my ass down in that valley as quick as I can, because I'm going to like that guy on the other side of that valley a lot more than this guy, because that guy is battle hardened. He's tested. And so, it's kind of balancing that out and trying to keep the crazy. You can tell I might have had a little athletic background on my end too, the bodybuilding for quite a while, and I played football as well. So, it was always this gamesmanship in my own mind of how to take ownership and possession of my own mind and my own thoughts, and not turn me into a victim. I mean, we have a world and a life that is looking to make everybody a victim. And the second you're a victim, you're out of the driver's seat. You're in the passenger seat of your own life. It's what's happening to you.
That's right.
As opposed to answering the one CEO question, what are you going to do about it? That's all we have, right? You're either going to be the victim, or you're going to take the remnants of what's left and make the best out of it you can. The first thing, being the victim, is a trap, and lots of people just get caught there. They live there their whole lives. And that CEO of your life thing, that being the boss of you and taking responsibility for it, not just the freedom, but the responsibility that comes with it, man. It's such powerful stuff, man. And as the more I look at it, the more I talk about it with people, the more I can see kind of that it's just a different thing. And I know it's in what you're talking about. It's a different thing than what people are hearing. And so I think that's important. But let me ask you this, Dre. I'm sorry to take and rhapsodize so much in this stuff, but I love being with somebody that thinks about this stuff.
You're passionate about it.
Man, you know what? I love to see people win. Living a life where people are better off for maybe something you told them or gave them. I can't think of a better way to live a life if that's what you're leaving behind, is a bunch of people whose lives are a little better. And so if I can do that, or if we can do that in any way, I think it's, it's kind of what the founders had in mind when they talked about that pursuit of happiness, the idea of
That's right.
chasing a life worth living, figuring
That's
out
right.
what it's about. So, where do you think all the success came from for you, Dre?
Where all the success came from for me? That's a deep question. Well, I would have to go to the foundation. I had to start from my home training, as we call it. So I had to give credit to my parents. They were not athletes. I'm 6'4" tall. My parents, neither one of them is taller than 5'8", maybe 5'9", maybe my dad. So they were not athletes. They didn't know the sports world like that. I mean, my dad's a sports fan. He would be a coach and things like that, but he didn't know anything about, especially basketball. Basketball wasn't his sport. And they were mostly full-time employees. They would do some side hustles, but they were not no entrepreneurs. I became an entrepreneur. So they didn't teach me the things that I ended up doing technically, but they laid the foundation of they got up every day and they went to work. They got up every day and they went to their jobs, and they never complained about it, at least not to their kids. So when it was time for me to go out into the world, I just took the same discipline that was modeled to me by my parents, and I applied that to the basketball court. And then I saw how it worked in basketball, and I applied that same discipline to business. And that's really the biggest thing for me. So those 4 principles that I talked about: discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative, those are the pillars of everything that I'm about and everything that I teach.
I love that, man. I love that. I mean, it's breaking it down to what it really is, because there's so many people that want to glorify what you do for a living, what you did for a living, playing sports. But the fact that you respect your parents for getting up every day and doing the grind that they do, man. One of the lessons my father taught me that I love so much is there's honor in all work. All work deserves to be done well. It doesn't matter if it's picking up garbage or painting a fan. It doesn't matter. If you're the one doing it, you need to respect the fact that you turn out a certain type of work product, period, because that's just who you are. And so, no, man, I love when you talk, I get misty when you start talking about your parents like that, because those are the ones that go out there every single day and just make it happen by going through the grind, man. That grind is brutal, pretty brutal. So what do you like best about what you do, Dre?
That I get to call the shots. That's the best part about it, that I get to call the shots, and I can do what I want. I can say what I want. I can publish what I want. I don't have to go along with anything I don't want to go along with, because I know that I have as I mentioned earlier, I have the fortitude, whether it be something tangible or intangible, to deal with pushback, disagreement, whatever. I get to make the final decisions, and I'm willing to stand on the decisions that I make. And that's both the gift and the curse of being a boss, of being an entrepreneur, is that you are in charge, which is a good thing, but now you're in charge. All right, which is when things are challenging, you're in charge. You got to figure it out. So that's the best part about it. I want that position. And when I saw that there was an opportunity to do that, I said, that's what I need to be doing.
Absolutely. If you the willingness to take on the responsibility that goes with the freedom, and the buck stops with you.
That's right.
So what do you think makes you good at it?
At which part?
at being the boss, at doing what you do, man.
What makes me good at it is, well, in addition to those 4 pillars that I talked about, is just understanding those concepts of, first of all, personal leadership, because if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead other people. And having whatever standards you're going to set for someone else, the flip side to that is you got to have them yourself, because nobody's going to respect it. If you don't have the standards yourself, then no one's going to respect the standards you try to set for them. And I think the biggest thing for me is just my ability to communicate, not just with other people, but with myself, because the communication that we have with ourselves, which is usually we call it thinking, because there's an ongoing conversation we're having in our own minds, that determines what actions that we take. The thoughts determine the actions determine the outcomes. So it's the way that I consciously think. And the fact that once I saw what personal development was, and I realized that there's a conscious process that you can go through intentionally to condition your mind to work a certain way, I got deep into that. And that's pretty much, you could say what I do today is personal and professional development. So once I realized that there was a way to do that on purpose, I dived all the way into that. And then once I was able to communicate that I have that and I know how to do it, other people came and they said, well, hey, can you show me how to do it? And that led to a business opportunity.
Yep. No, you call it a conversation. I typically refer to it as a negotiation, because I feel like there's definitely 2 voices in my head. There's the fat kid that wants to eat the carton of ice cream sitting on the couch, and there's the guy that wants to go do more cardio. And those guys duke it out. And I'm not going to tell you the guy on the couch doesn't win quite a few of those battles. You know, it's acting like there's not the two voices going on in our head is just not understanding the human experience. There's this lesser version and this better version of ourselves that we're constantly dealing with. But I love the piece that you talked about being, honest with yourself. How are you going to get people to follow you if you don't even have integrity yourself to do what needs to be done? And it's an important idea, because I ask people this question all the time. I say, do you lie to yourself? And people say, well, yeah, no, I do. I say, do you lie to other people less frequently than you lie to yourself? And they're like, yeah, no, I lie to myself more. When did that get to be okay? Because what does it say about how you respect yourself if you won't even keep your word to yourself? Like, I told me I was going to do this. Why am I not doing this? Because the problem is, you look in the mirror, right? And you look in the mirror, and the guy looking back at you, the gal looking back at you is either a person of integrity or they're not. And that has this ripple effect of how you treat that person going forward. And this is people that have this self-loathing and all this stuff. It's where it comes from, because they just don't respect themselves, because they lose so many of those battles. It's this ongoing negotiation, this war. I love it because we want to talk about the same stuff from different angles. It's always fascinating, because it's the same, trying to quantify this human experience and figure out how to do a little bit more, how to get a little bit more out of it. So let me ask you to change topics a little bit. As you look at the environment and the world that we're in today, what do you see as the opportunities in the market? What are where is it that you think the opportunities exist?
That's a really good question. Where are the opportunities at right now? I think for people who the opportunities are in insight these days. It's not really in information, because information has pretty much been democratized, right? And we all have access to it. And Google and GPT AI has pretty much cornered the market on information. Anybody can access it. So the key these days now is to have the insight, which I define as your ability to take the information and know which information you need, which information to use, why, and how to use it. That's going to be the differentiator now. Is not who has information, because we all got it. And what's interesting is that we thought, when the information superhighway came out, that would just make everybody infinitely smarter, but it really hasn't. It actually made people dumber, because now they're lazier. So the key now is who's actually using the information and doing something with it to move forward. Because now, since you can't sell information, not raw information in the way that we used to, now you got to come up with a more creative way to do things. So people just had to get more creative. People still had the mental toughness still matters. Having confidence still matters. Discipline still matters. All of those things matter. And what's interesting is that in the general sense, people don't change. You're still going to have the same breakdowns of successful and unsuccessful and mediocre people in the middle. Is not going to change. The only thing that changes are the players and the tools. So I think the biggest things that matter today are actually the same biggest things that mattered 60 and 50 years ago. Is just different tools that we're using to determine the outcomes. But the outcomes are going to be pretty much the same.
Human beings haven't changed, and living a good life hasn't changed.
That's right.
It's still the same stuff we're trying to figure out. You can look at any philosopher from Plato all the way to and Aristotle all the way to today. They're all trying to solve the exact same problems: how to take and live a good, meaningful life and do it well. Do something that you're proud of. And so, no, man, I couldn't agree more. That's great stuff. The aggregation, pulling together the important information and then disseminating it, taking and bringing it in, and then turning it into something that people can take and make useful. Because I think that it's almost the opposite problem. Rather than have to go look it up in the encyclopedia like we used to, now the problem is there's so much data, and so much of it is flawed data, that context matters more than anything. So before you make a statement about economics, have you read enough history to understand that whether or not what you're saying makes any sense based upon all the experience that we have? Because as soon as you make an economic statement, you're making a statement about history too, right? And about human beings and ethics, and all this stuff ties together. And so figuring out how to look at the information and pull out the requisite pieces to take and make it helpful and meaningful in the best possible way is a real skill set that the modern world seems to reward more so than it used to. So yeah, man, I really agree with what you're saying there. What do you think are the most important things you've learned in the process of doing what you do?
Most important things. Well, first of all, just always investing in yourself. Investing is not just money. It's also time, attention, energy, and focus. into whatever you want to be better at. A lot of times, a lot of people say they want to be better at things, but they're not really making the investments, or they're only doing things that are easy and convenient for them. So it's making sure you're continually investing in yourself, getting around other people who are playing the game at a higher level, and being willing to get pushed outside of your comfort zone, or choosing to get outside of your comfort zone so that you can actually grow. Because everybody understands the concept of the comfort zone, that all the growth happens outside of it. But a lot of times people don't want to do anything that's actually going to be uncomfortable. So it's being willing to get uncomfortable. And usually 90+% of the time, for you to get uncomfortable, you're going to need someone else to help you do it, because we have a self-regulating mechanism within us that does not allow us to make ourselves that uncomfortable. We won't put ourselves through that much pain on purpose as a general rule, but your personal trainer or your coach will do it. All right. So that's why you got to get around other people who will push you outside of your comfort zone, and they'll usually push you outside of your comfort zone further and sooner than you would do it to yourself. So Absolutely. You get more results faster when you let somebody else push you outside of the comfort zone, or you submit to letting them do it. It's not like you let them do it, but you submit to letting them do it so that you can get more results faster. But that requires a certain level of discipline and mental toughness to even know that that's going to happen, but you do it anyway.
And I think there's maybe even another piece to that, which is like the self-humility sort of thing. Because there's kind of this, I'm fine, I'm good. I don't need that. Like other people need. I don't need that. Right. And kind of this to sit there and be willing to acknowledge your own faults and flaws. We're all broken. We're all screwed up. And if you don't think you are, that's part of where you're screwed up, because you are, right? And so people's ego need to be checked. And I mean, I have a guy that used to train me, man, and I don't care, because I was a very hardcore workout guy. Like my workouts were legendary of what we would do, right? But this guy would come in, and no matter, I wouldn't have him around for a while, and I'd do my stuff, and it would all be, and he'd come in and he would always push me, as you're saying, that little bit more, Now force rep those last two, Josh. You son of a, no, we're going to rest only 30 seconds between sets. How, what? But at the end of the day, you're right. It's, again, you're talking about the exact same thing. It's a different valley, right? But what's the best path to get to that guy on the other side of the valley? Because the guy on the other side of the valley is a better version of me. And that's the guy I got to live with for the rest of my life. I'd rather be with that guy than this bum I'm stuck with right now. Like, how do I get to be that guy? Well, it's getting through this. Well, if we got to go through the valley, what's the best way to do it? Let me ask somebody that's been through the valley how to get through here in the best possible way, as opposed to let me figure it out for myself. That's the guy not asking for directions on the road trip, right? When you're lost. You're absolutely right, man. The humility to go ask for help and find the right people to get you through it. It's a thing.
Yeah, and I tell people humility breeds confidence, so they're not diametrically opposed. So you have to be humble enough to know that you need to do the work, and then when you do the work, that gives you the confidence because you've done the work. So they actually work off of each other. They're not opposites.
Absolutely. No, especially for guys. The science is so bad for guys that are overconfident. Where they just underperform. The ones that are humble, the ones that think they need more work, they're the ones that do best. It's really amazing.
That's right.
So, Dre, what do you think makes you passionate about what you do, buddy?
What makes me passionate about what I do is knowing that the stuff that I'm telling people and the stuff that I'm teaching people is the same stuff that I say to myself, or I have said to myself, and it's helping people grow and evolve. Because I know this stuff works, because it's the same stuff that I either had to be told, or that I told myself, or that I'm telling myself. It's one of the three happening every single time. So sometimes when I'm talking to my audience, I'm making that message not only for them, but for me too. I'm telling myself the same time I'm telling them. So I know that this stuff is important. And this is all about, what do you need to do to continually self-evaluate, then make the necessary adjustments based on where you are, and then execute. Actually apply and execute on these things so that you can get better, whether we're talking on your personal side or your professional side. Because over here, what we do is personal and professional development, because you got to build the person in order to build the business. So that's what makes me passionate, is understanding that this applies, everything I say applies to me just as well as it applies to everybody else, whether I already learned it or I'm in the process of learning it. But it applies to every human being on the planet, and logically everybody accepts it. It's just that emotionally people don't always accept things, and it's really trying to crack that code of getting people to emotionally accept something. That's when they cross the threshold, and that's really where change starts to happen.
Yeah, no, I think a great business is part of it, is a subset of a great life. If you have a great business and you're screwed up in the rest of life, you're not winning.
Right.
That is being, myopically focused on one aspect while letting everything else suffer. And that's not a win either. I love what you said. I got to ask. I'm gonna ask. Pull the curtain back a little bit. From the proper and polished gentleman that you are. Have you ever been in the situation where like you're having the negotiation with yourself and you have to say to yourself, now what did you just tell the guy on the phone? Like what did you just tell that person? Like you know what you're supposed to do when you're trying to talk to yourself. Have you ever had one of those?
Yeah, I have those. Yeah, I definitely have those conversations, Josh, because what happens is, when I'm recording material, sometimes I'll be making a video on YouTube, or, I have a solo podcast. So I'll be recording an episode of my podcast and I'll say something. And I'm like, damn, that applies to me just like it applies to the audience. Yep. And I try to make a note, or I try to mark it while I don't try to stop while I'm recording, but I'll try to make a note. Like, I got to go listen to that again, what I just said, because it applies to me the same way it applies to everyone else. So absolutely, that happens, and that's the whole point. And I even tell my audience that I say, listen, some of the things that I say here, I'm talking to me the same way I'm talking to you. So don't think I'm talking to you from some elevated platform. Like sometimes I'm giving myself the same message. I'm just using you all as a like a go-between to talk to myself. Yeah.
We are. Whenever you stop thinking that you're a work in progress, you're in trouble, because then you've stopped growing. And that's the one thing you can never stop doing. We're like sharks. We got to keep swimming or we die, kind of thing, right? We got to keep growing or we just start dying. That's all there is to it. And then, try to take and make this best life that we can. So a little bit of maybe a change of pace. What are you most proud of in business that you've accomplished?
That's a really good question. What am I most proud of in business that I have accomplished? No, I don't think I have any. I don't think I have a signature business accomplishment yet, Josh, but I will answer the question. What will I say here? I will say the thing that I'm most proud of is really just being able to, and I tell this to people all the time, to kind of apply that 80-20 principle to my business. So one of the things that we decided to do this year was focus more on like high ticket items, high ticket offerings, and less on the low ticket stuff. So our number of actual transactions is down significantly, but the revenue is up. Nice. So just being able to actually apply that, because people talk about the 80-20 rule all the time, right? But are they actually applying it, right? So that's one of the biggest things for me. But I don't think I have any one like big signature thing that I could say is just, I know there are some things I can list out that people say, all right, that's interesting. You did TED Talks and you did this and that, but I don't think I have a signature moment yet in business. So it's still a work in progress. It
might be a signature moment to someone else, but it doesn't hit your signature moment threshold. Right. It's not in your Hall of Fame. And I respect that, actually. That's there's a lot of things that people celebrate that I just kind of feel like, whatever. I don't feel like it was that big. It needs to be epic to be in the Hall of Fame, kind of thing. In my own, maybe. I'm super guilty of that, actually. So what are you most proud of in life that you've accomplished then? Let's go with that.
I'm most proud of in life, I would have to say just how I was able to make it happen in basketball, just from the background of where I came from, the fact that I even got the chance to go and play pro, and being that, sports is a thing that very few people get to play at the pro level. And it's still something that, even though, the further away you get from it, the less it matters on your resume, but still matters. So that's something that it still is a kind of like a passport to a conversation. The fact that I made it pro. I would say of all the things, given where I started and where I was trying to get to, that's probably the biggest gap between where I started and where I got to, of the things that I've done so far.
Okay, good stuff. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I got a question for you here that I want to run by you, but the movie always calls to mind when I ask this question. Have you ever seen the movie John Q?
No, I have not.
Okay, it's a really worthwhile movie. And there's a scene in the movie where the father, the kid is dying and he needs a heart, and the father they can't get a heart for the kid, they can't afford it, whatever. So the father's getting ready to kill himself so they can take his heart and give it to the kid. But he's like a little boy, and he's trying to, now that this is the level he's been taken to, he's trying to give the kid whatever lessons he can, like, because he's not going to be here in a few minutes. And so the question I have for you is, what one piece of advice would you give our listeners? If you had you're never going to talk to somebody again, what one piece of advice would you give them? Like, yeah, hang on to this.
that everything that we do in life, there's a game, so to speak, that you're playing. So your relationships are a game, your business is a game. If you play a sport, that's a game. Your fitness, your finances, everything that you do, there's a game that you're playing. Your job is to understand what game you're in, understand how that game is played and the rules of the game and what allows you to win that game, what's the objective of it. And then once you understand how the game is played, then your job is to work on your game so that you can, play that game at the highest possible level and you can win that game as consistently as possible. So your job is always to know what game you're in, learn how to play it, and then play it at the highest level.
Good stuff. Work in progress. Love it. All right. Another change of pace for you. What one book or movie would you recommend to people? Book or movie choice?
Well, I'm not a big movie watcher, so I go with a book. My favorite is The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene.
Okay, good book. Good book. Right as I go. All right, Dre, what is next for you? You're a busy guy. I can tell you got some. You already told us that you're focusing on your big ticket items. What's the next project?
The next project, well, one thing I told myself this year, Josh, is I was not creating anything new. And so far I have not. I've not created anything new this year.
That can be a goal too.
Yeah, no new books, no new courses, no new anything, just focusing on marketing what I already have. So that's the goal, is sticking to that for the rest of the year, but I'm already got in my mind what books I might write moving forward, what new things I may do, but really is just focusing on expanding the work on your game, brand and message, because I would bet that most of your audience and even you before this happened never heard of me before. So we got to fix that. So it's really taking work on your game and making it into the just do it of personal and professional development. All right. So we know what just do it means for athletes. You want to make work on your game that when it comes to developing yourself and developing your business.
Good stuff. Winding it up here. What do you do to unwind?
It's a good question. Well, what I'm going to do today, and what I do usually at the end of every day, is I take a walk with my son. So it's about a 1 mile walk. I'm in South Florida, so it's about 90 something degrees out here. Yeah. With this suit on, it's hot out there, but I get used to it. So I take a walk with my son, and that's usually the only time of the day from the beginning of the day when I wake up. I do my meditation in the morning, and then once I get going, until that time that I take that walk, I am kind of doing stuff. I'm talking to a camera. I'm talking to a person. I'm talking to email. That's the only time I have where I don't have to talk to anybody. My son's he's only 11 months right now, so he can't talk. So that's the time I get to go and not talk to anybody for about an hour. So that's my unwinding. Yeah.
Let the mind chill out and kind of relax. No, it's a thing. As a guy that speaks for a living here, I feel you. Those long days of talking, man, so they just have that hour you get to just be quiet and do nothing.
Right. While still being awake. Yes.
Yeah. While still being, I don't talk in my sleep. I don't think.
Right.
I don't know yet. I'm not really awake to see. All right, great. Where can people find you if they want more of what you have to offer? If they want to know more about your stuff, where do they find you?
Well, I'm on all the social medias. I'm on every platform, active on all of them. I post everywhere at least once a day. Probably most active on Instagram. My Instagram is just my name, @DreAllDay. I use the stories gratuitously. And I hopped on Threads too, so I'm on there as well. I send out a daily motivation text for free every day. Can I share that number where people can get it? Yeah, so if you just text me at 305-384-6894, every day I send out a message guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start the day. It's called Daily Motivation Text, free of charge every day, straight to your phone. And best place to work with me directly is at workonyourgameuniversity.com. But if you find me on any of those platforms, don't worry, we'll tell you about it. So you'll hear about it. So the Work on Your Game University is the place to work with me.
Good stuff. Dre, thank you so much for your time, sir, and for the insights and everything that you gave us here. Really, really appreciate it. I know that everyone else that's going to listen to this will as well.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing the platform. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, Dre. Take care, buddy. All right, to our fans, till next time, we'll catch you back here at Know Your Shit Podcast.